Hi everyone! Today we'll be talking about one of my favorite artists, as you may be able to tell by the shirt. We're talking Tom Petty. Now I've had the pleasure of listening to his discography for the past 2 weeks to come up with the cream of the crop. I'm calling this, undeniably, the top 10 best Tom Petty songs. And just to stir things up a little bit, I'll have my pick for an overrated song at the end. In the meantime, let's get to the top 10. At number 10, we have Breakdown, from the album titled Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. At 11 years old, Tom Petty's uncle invited the youngster to meet Elvis, who was filming a movie in Gainesville, Florida. Tom was never the same. He caught the rock and roll bug and begged his father to buy him an electric guitar. As a teen, he started his first band, the Epics, actually playing bass. The Epics would change into the questionably named Mudcrutch. While auditioning a drummer, Petty mentioned they could use a lead guitarist, and wouldn't you know it, Mike Campbell was in the other room. It seemed like fate. Petty talked Mike out of going to college and the army to follow their rock and roll fantasy. Shortly thereafter, Petty ran into Benmont Tench, a piano whiz he knew from town, who was a few years younger, and also managed to talk him into foregoing college to join the group. Mudcrutch recorded some demos, and Petty drove out to LA to personally walk into labels and ask them to listen. Wouldn't you know it, someone dug it. After signing for a short record deal though, it became clear the label wanted Petty as a solo artist. Mudcrutch broke up. A little while later, Benmont tried to form his own group with bassist Ron Blair and drummer Stan Lynch. Tom and Mike dropped by a session they were jamming on, and right then, Tom Petty decided he found his new band, the Heartbreakers. Breakdown was their first ever single from their self-titled debut. The Floridians strut with a swampy, bluesy groove. Benmont plays both organ and smooth electric keyboard. Mike Campbell plays guitar judiciously, weaving in and out. And Stan not only keeps a cool, easygoing beat, but he sings quality backup vocals. Tom already gives a star-making turn, a powerful baritone, both self-deprecating and confident. On Breakdown, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers introduce themselves with authority and attitude. At number 9, we have You Don't Know How It Feels, from Wildflowers. We can't talk about Tom Petty without mentioning his music video legacy. He was one of the few rock and roll artists of the time to gamely lead the way. You Got Lucky was a huge MTV hit and featured a non-music story intro, somewhat radical at the time. The group went on to make plenty of memorable clips, and the group even stretched the medium, daring MTV to put Into the Great Wide Open in the rotation, a 7.5-minute video featuring Johnny Depp and Faye Dunaway. It was another small screen smash. You Don't Know How It Feels is another great video. Fairly simple, with Petty in focus, singing into a microphone. Meanwhile, the background behind him rotates and reveals a motley cast of colorful characters. It's a fun contrast with the song, and won an MTV Music Video Award. Wildflowers started as a solo album that eventually got every heartbreaker involved except for drummer Stan Lynch, who didn't feel the material. So Petty put out a call for drummers, and in walked Steve Ferrone. Ferrone auditioned on You Don't Know How It Feels without ever hearing the song. He was hired on the spot and would join the group for life shortly after. A black British heartbreaker with a group full of Southern boys? Who would have seen that coming? Ferrone's simple, heavy kick and snare stomp is an easygoing rhythm with a great backbeat. Nearly 5 minutes long, it was a big hit because the beat won't quit. Tom sings call and response during the verses, and then his voice multiplies in the chorus, joined by harmonies on the caustic title. And you don't know how it feels to be me, delivered with a cheeky wink. Wildflowers honestly ranks among Tom Petty's best albums, and You Don't Know How It Feels was the perfectly picked introductory single, full of swaggering rock and roll. At number 8, we have I Need to Know, from You're Gonna Get It. In the late 70s, rock and roll was bloated and excessive. Led Zeppelin gave way to progressive rock and scared off audiences while clubs were spinning disco records. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers were the antithesis to studio slick extended disco cuts. They played short, punchy, imperfect rock and roll that you could shake your tail feather to. They would get lumped in with the new wave scene. Petty would remark, I guess we're new wave, we aren't part of the old wave. But really the sound was pure American rock and roll to its core. Mike Campbell joked that the band's motto was, don't bore us, get to the chorus. But I'm not sure if it's much of a joke or the band's honest mindset. I Need to Know is only 2 minutes long in total. It only takes 24 seconds to get to the urgent chorus. Mike and Tom's double attack guitars charge in with punky energy along with Ron's steady low end. Then Benmont joins in, pounding the ebonies and ivories. The title refrain goes back and forth between Tom Petty and the backups. I need to know, I need to know, I need to know, I need to know. Petty isn't pussyfooting around. The chorus ends with elongated phrasing from Tom. If you're making me wait, if you're leading me on. With Benmont playing a complimentary melody, who then steamrolls a Jerry Lee Lewis barrel roll solo in a few seconds. In a blink of an eye, I Need to Know is over, leaving your serotonin engaged. It's an adrenaline rush that you just want to put right back on. At number 7, we have Don't Do Me Like That from Damn the Torpedoes. Originally written during the Mudcrutch years, the title, Don't Do Me Like That, could have easily been directed at the Heartbreakers label. The group was originally signed to Shelter, which was acquired by MCA. Petty said he felt like the band was sold like we were groceries. They had a clause in their contract that they needed the band's consent to change labels, so Petty went to legal war. The case had implications across the whole music business. In an industry first, he filed for bankruptcy. Like the full speed ahead slang of the album title, Petty had nothing to lose. The group proceeded on a tour dubbed the Lawsuit Tour to pay for legal expenses. During legal proceedings, MCA claimed they owned the in-progress recordings of the band's third album. So that Tom wouldn't have any liability in court, all tapes were hidden in an undisclosed location after every session. Eventually, the label called off court proceedings and settled with the Heartbreakers, giving Petty the publishing rights back and their own label as part of MCA. The lads stood their ground against a huge corporation and won. Score 1 for the artist. Don't Do Me Like That was the first single from their third album, Damn the Torpedoes. Petty almost gave the song to the Jay Giles Band before producer Jimmy Iovine convinced him to include it on the LP. Imagine giving away a song this good. Coming back to their brevity, this song is a greasy southern fried boogie in under 3 minutes. It starts with staccato guitar chords, with plinking piano and bursts of electric organ. The bouncing bass and steady drums keep the rhythm lively, and Tom's vocal melody dances as he wears his heart on his sleeve. Listen honey, can you see? Baby, you would bury me if you were in a public eye, giving someone else a try. While the title sounds like Tom might have a chip on his shoulder, Don't Do Me Like That is a feel-good romp, with the band cutting loose and having playful fun. At number 6, we have Free Fallin' from Full Moon Fever. Tom Petty's solo albums all happened organically, and they always included his right-hand man, Mike Campbell. In 1987, Tom loved George Harrison's Cloud 9 album, and he saw Jeff Lynne while driving in LA. Stopped at a traffic light, he yelled over that they should work together. Petty recalled the album came together quickly. He wrote with both Mike and Jeff, and felt like the songs didn't really have a heartbreaker sound. He later heard rumblings that the band didn't love the material either, but shrugged it off. He brought bassist Howie Epstein in to play on a track, and was stunned when he moped that he didn't like the song, and left. Of all songs, it was Free Fallin', arguably Petty's biggest hit. He wasn't alone in his distaste for it. The A&R man for MCA didn't want to release it either. Petty had former producer Denny Cordell listen to Free Fallin', and when he loved it, Tom told him the label's reluctance in releasing it, calling it inconsistent with his image. Denny then wrote an angry letter to the label, and long story short, it was released, and a monster single. Free Fallin' is a lush acoustic ballad with abstract lyrics that invite you to fill in the meaning for yourself. Straightforward, open guitar chords ring out over a swaying rhythm and a melody so huge it was meant for putting up lighters in amphitheaters. It takes its time building up. By the chorus, Petty sings that I'm free, free fallin', like the wind is blowing through his hair as he speeds down the freeway under the Californian sun. A shuffling drum in the last verse adds extra drama for the final chorus. Free Fallin' is a powerful, ambiguous anthem that would never fail to inspire crowds to sing along at the top of their lungs. At number 5, we have Refugee from Damn the Torpedoes. Jeff Lynne produced albums by tracking instruments separately, but the Heartbreakers' usual style was to have all 5 members of the band nail one perfect take. During the making of their third LP, Petty claimed the band worked 18-hour days. Mike Campbell said the group recorded 150 takes of Refugee, just so they could absolutely nail the feel of the song perfectly. That definitely is bordering on insanity. I'm sure by take 30 or so, they had some really good ones, but it's hard to argue too much. The run-through that ended up on the album is a gem, with every note, beat, and vocal in the perfect spot. Danny Cordell had produced the first 2 albums, but Petty felt betrayed that he never warned the group that they were signing a bad record contract. They got a young, hotshot producer, Jimmy Iovine, who had recently worked with Patti Smith and Bruce Springsteen. Jimmy and Tom were both workaholics who bonded instantly. There was some tension during sessions because Jimmy had issues with Stan's drumming, saying it seemed too slow for Tom's songs. Between all this added drama and the pressure of putting out an album after winning their lawsuit, the Heartbreakers made what is widely considered their best album, Damn the Torpedoes. Iovine recalled Petty came to him and played 2 songs on acoustic, Refugee and Here Comes My Girl. Jimmy told Tom, "I've never said this to anyone, you don't need any more songs." It's hard to argue. They are both top tier Tom Petty. Refugee sounds downright dangerous. Washes of organ flair, with cutting, bluesy guitar licks and distorted whole note power chords. Petty plays the cool, indifferent guy, growling, "Honey, it don't make no difference to me, baby. Everybody's had to fight to be free." The chorus opens up, lifting and stressing the first 2 words. "You don't have to live like a refugee," with the band expertly joining to harmonize the refrain. Refugee sounds like getting into the passenger seat with a rebel without a cause. It's a killer gut punch of rock and roll bravado. At number 4, we have Wildflowers, from the album of the same name. Tom Petty's second solo LP is noticeably different from his first. Producer Jeff Lynne was the former head of ELO, Electric Light Orchestra, known for dense, layered in-studio productions like Mr. Blue Sky. He preferred to isolate instruments and track them separately, mixing them together later, resulting in slicker arrangements. Petty brought in a new producer for Wildflowers, Rick Rubin, who pushed a more back-to-basics approach, with more live, in-studio sessions, with less focus on overdubbing, resulting in the songs feeling more raw and natural. Wildflowers was originally planned as a double album with 25 songs. Tom had newly signed to Warner Brothers Records, however, and they nixed the idea, whittling the collection down to 15 songs to fit a single compact disc. The full release, retitled Wildflowers and All the Rest, would appear posthumously in 2020. During the sessions, Rick Rubin recalled Tom Petty writing the title track in 5 minutes. Rubin asked Petty what inspired the song, and Petty said he didn't know. Rubin would call it channeling a spirit. Petty remarked that the best ones just appear to fall out of the sky, further explaining he tried not to understand it for fear of messing things up, calling it a spiritual thing. Wildflowers is stunningly beautiful in its simplicity. It's a rolling, majestic folk yarn with a gentle melody and lyrics of a plain, karmic statement that everyone deserves to be free. In contrast to his Traveling Wilburys bandmate Bob Dylan, the words aren't fussed over, yet they still pack a potent existential punch that can be felt in your bones. Benmont Tench's eloquent, flowing piano starts soft and gradually builds the dynamic before wrapping the strummed acoustic guitar in a warm embrace. Wildflowers was never released as a single, but it's one of Tom Petty's most beloved songs for a reason. It's a gorgeous meditation on living your life well and using your heart as your compass. At number 3, we have Runnin' Down a Dream from Full Moon Fever. Inspired by his times working with Traveling Wilburys, Tom Petty said he wrote nearly a song a day for the Full Moon Fever sessions. It would be the biggest album he ever had, with 5 hit singles. After some rocky personal years, he was in a better headspace. It was recorded mainly in the relaxed atmosphere of Mike Campbell's garage studio. Petty would later say it was the most enjoyable record of his career. Petty said, "When I was in the best place emotionally, I played the best music." Petty was always a very open collaborator, game to join sessions with just about anyone. Beyond the Ringers and the Wilburys, he would work on songs with Roger McGuinn, Stevie Nicks, and Johnny Cash. Still, above all, we can't deny the co-writing coming from the band's captain, Mike Campbell. Mike didn't always get a songwriting credit, but his hand graced many of Petty's biggest songs. On Running Down a Dream, Campbell wrote one of the most iconic riffs in rock and roll history. The song kicks right into it, with a fuzzy guitar lick that transverses the traditional key as it descends demonically. There is a powerful, driving rhythm that made an essential Heartbreaker song live. Mike is not the flashiest guitarist, he is simply great. On this solo, it's a total barn burner. The man is on absolute fire. When they closed with the jam at the Super Bowl, Campbell put on a clinic, with a Duesenberg double neck guitar no less. Mike Campbell deserves a big highlight in any talk of Petty lore. The song finds Petty describing the creative process. Running down a dream that never would have come to me. working on a mystery, going wherever it leads, over a standard guitar bass drums combo, but with unstoppable momentum. Running Down a Dream is a rocking runaway train, barreling down the tracks with the brake lines cut. At number 2, we have The Waiting from Hard Promises. The lyrics start, "Oh baby, don't it feel like heaven right now? Don't it feel like something from a dream?" Petty and the Heartbreakers had just had the biggest success of their career with Damn the Torpedoes. But Tom was a realist, and it was almost as if he was expecting the other shoe to drop. The pressure of following up their success would have been stressful enough, but also during the sessions, Tom's mother would pass away. His father was abusive toward Tom, and he credited his mother for keeping him grounded. As he often did, he would turn to music to work through his emotions. Once again, the label chose to irritate Tom. MCA wanted to charge so-called superstar pricing for the album, raising it $1 from $8.98 to $9.98. It might not seem like much now, but it was a huge deal then, and Tom balked at milking his fans out of another $1. Petty protested, famously appearing on the cover of Rolling Stone, ripping up a dollar bill, and almost titling the album $8.98 to spite them. But the label eventually relented and didn't increase the price. For The Waiting, Tom said he played the riff for several weeks, all day long, taking a break to eat and then getting right back to it. After a while, he got the chorus, but was still stuck on the riff before figuring it all out. He would say some of his best songs come easy, but in this case, it needed a little TLC. It was well worth the effort. The Waiting is jangle pop perfection. Mike Campbell plays the gliding melodic riff that's nearly as catchy as the chorus. Petty would say the title came from a Janis Joplin quote about touring. "I love being on stage and everything else is waiting." Petty and the Heartbreakers lived for the stage, and they made sure the song was stadium ready, with powerful drums and bass, clean chiming guitars, a yeah yeah hook that you could learn the first time through, and a chorus that digs deep into your cortex. You take it on faith, you take it to the heart. The Waiting is an impeccable pop song from one of the greatest to ever do it. At number 1, we have American Girl from the album titled Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. It's hard to imagine now, but when the Heartbreakers released American Girl as a single, it tanked. It would take a re-release in the 90s, from his greatest hits collection, to even appear on the charts. But by then, the song was already canon in classic rock history, gaining popularity on AOR channels, what was known as album-oriented radio, that added deep cuts to playlists. In some perfectly timed stroke, the song was recorded on the 4th of July, 1976, which happened to be the bicentennial of the United States. More American than the national anthem. American Girl is a big-hearted anthem with timeless, universal yearning for something greater. Petty would later say he was possessed by rock and roll, feeling some inner restlessness to go out and bring it to the people. On American Girl, he is a populist pastor, preaching the healing power of music itself. Tom Petty could write lyrics that were concise and clear, without needing to be flowery. There is a relatable working-class romanticism to turning up the radio and leaving town with no clear destination in mind. It's an escapist dream. American Girl starts with a turbocharged riff and twangy rhythm guitar over a juiced-up Bo Diddley beat. It was power pop so full of energy, it rivals punk rock. At one point, they would be called Heartland rock, which doesn't make a ton of sense to me. They were from Florida after all. But this was certainly rock and roll with a lot of heart. Tom sings a perfect small-town opera. She was an American girl, raised on promises. She couldn't help thinking that there was a little more life somewhere else. The music captures this idealistic restlessness with Ron Blair's busy bass and Stan Lynch's overexcited drumming that could give a pulse to a dead man. And it contains possibly the all-time best air guitar solo. American Girl would be the very last song Tom Petty played with the Heartbreakers before his passing. For a man that believed in karma, it was a fitting, poetic end. Going out on top, a teenage rocker full of ambition who became an American legend. American Girl is life-affirming lightning in a bottle and pure, passionate rock and roll energy. It stands as one of the finest songs ever written and Thomas Earl Petty's absolute best. And now, I'll add 2 more songs that almost made the list. The first near miss is I Won't Back Down. You know the man made a lot of hits when a song of this caliber can't crack the top 10. Jeff Lynne's production style could best be summed up as the Beatles, but in the 80s. And a real-life Beatle in George Harrison showed up to play backup guitar and sing backup to put the icing on the cake. I Won't Back Down was even covered by Johnny Cash later on, which Petty would contribute on, with a completely different feel, showing just how sturdy the song is. The huge "Hey baby" chorus would make any artist's entire career. For Tom, it just barely missed the top 10. The other to nearly make the list is Mary Jane's Last Dance. Petty was against releasing a greatest hits, but it was a contractual obligation. The label wanted a new song, to which Petty rhetorically asked, how could it be a hit if I haven't written it yet? Tom took a leftover from Full Moon Fever, going by the name Indiana Girl, and recorded it live with the Heartbreakers during the Wildflowers era. It would be the last recording with Stan Lynch, and you could almost sense some tension in the song. With its grungy, distorted riffage and blissed out chorus, he did in fact deliver another standout hit to MCA before walking out the door. The Greatest Hits collection went diamond, selling 10 million copies. Mary Jane's Last Dance introduced a whole new generation to a rock and roll powerhouse, and it deserves to be mentioned among his best. Finally, let's talk about what I consider to be the most overrated song by Tom Petty, and that is Don't Come Around Here No More. The stories around the Southern Accents recordings weren't exactly positive. The group talked about how Heartbreakers sessions were usually tight-knit, but during this time, straight people always seemed in the studio. Cocaine use was prevalent, and Petty would even end up breaking his hand after he punched a wall in frustration of the inability to get a song right. He called it a manifestation of self-destruction, and it inspired him to sober up. It would take physical therapy and even electric shocks to his nerves to get his hand back in guitar playing shape. During that time, he went into a Stevie Nicks session that had her working with Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics. They of Sweet Dreams Are Made of This fame. They were tracking a song that already had those digital, echoey drums and the chorus, Don't Come Around Here No More. Petty decided to take the song, even though the Heartbreakers didn't embrace it. It's not exactly surprising, it sticks out like a sore thumb on the LP. Southern Accents was underloved at the time, but both Rebels and the title track are excellent deep cuts. While the rest of the album might have some questionable production, it wasn't boring. You could never accuse Tom Petty of being on autopilot for a paycheck. Don't Come Around Here No More is nearly 5 minutes long and very repetitive, kind of repeating the same lines over and over again. The production is woefully dated. When they trotted it out live, it just wasn't made for the stage like most Heartbreakers material. Don't Come Around Here No More really should have been the Eurythmics featuring Tom Petty, not an actual Heartbreakers track. I'll give props to the Mad Hatter music video, which is still pretty cool, but the song itself, for a great songsmith like Tom Petty, it can't help but be overrated. As you're still watching, I wanted to share a deep cut as well. For that, I'm shining a light on Casadega, a B-side to Don't Do Me Like That. I know in the 70s they kind of needed to have filler songs on the B-side of their singles, but Casadega feels miscast as a B-side. The song is anchored by Ron Blair's heavy bass and a laid-back swaying rhythm. Benmont plays delicate organ, while Mike Campbell summons twinkling harmonics under Tom Petty's lilting, lovelorn country western melody. Considering there were only 9 total songs on Damn the Torpedoes, still a mystery to me why Casadega wasn't included. Instead, it's an obscurity meant for the most dedicated of fans. If you haven't heard it, you should definitely check it out. So there you have it. That was undeniably the top 10 best Tom Petty songs. So, how wrong was I? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What's your top 3? Do you think Don't Come Around Here No More is one of his best songs? Let me know. And if there's any artists you'd like to see me rank, let me know in the comments below. Hope you stick around, and thank you for watching. Okay, Floridians. He plays organ and more organ.
He plays a double organ. You know what makes a great band? The double organ.
That's people never talk about it. Ferroni, okay. Where skinning would appear okay. Oh, I always get that word even though posthumously.
Yeah.
Posthumously. Okay. Posthumously. No, it's posthumously, isn't it?
Is it posthumously?
Posthumously. Posthumously. Dressel. Okay. Flyers. Oh. Wild Flyers? The album titled. No.
of a breakdown.
Yeah, it was.